Okay, what's going on? It's the ascension of Babalon. What we do here is we talk about the occult, we talk about spiritual self-development, and we talk about the healing process. If that is your thing, hit that subscribe button and go ahead and drop a like. What we're going to be talking about in this video is Babalon in relation to the beast of 666. Now, the beast of 666 actually shows up in the book of Revelations, and most people have a very religious, dualistic way of understanding the book of Revelations, and therefore understanding the beast that shows up in the book of Revelations. Most people think the beast is evil. They reject the beast. They think the beast is like this bad force, and that's because the beast, regardless of how we've been conditioned to interpret it from the lens of the Bible, represents the most rejected parts of the human being. The beast is literally a personification of everything that a person disowns within themselves, which is why the beast takes the form of a beast. It's everything that has been rejected in relation to the human species. Now, when we're looking at the initiatory process, Babalon guides us to the beast of 666. And once again, the beast is a personification of all of those rejected qualities. Babalon is this force that leads us into a really deep process of integrating the shadow by acknowledging and seeing for what they are all these demonized traits within ourselves. We need to see them in order to be able to integrate them. And we need to integrate them to actually access the higher states of awareness that are on the other side of the abyss that the beast is a guardian of. So the beast is like this force that will either make you or break you. The beast is actually a guide, but only when we don't reject the beast. So there's a lot of people that have got into the initiatory process and they initiate the crossing of the abyss. And what they do is they try to control the beast. They try to manage the beast. They have perceptions and belief systems that reflect their desire to reject the beast, and therefore the very qualities of human nature that the beast is actually a representation of. These are the qualities that need to be connected with and interacted with and then integrated in order to actually cross the abyss. These are the parts that need to be accepted, not rejected. And the reason why a lot of people have failed the abyssal crossing is because they reject the beast that shows up as a guardian of that threshold. So within the kabbalistic system, whether it's the Qliphoth or the Sephiroth, the beast is essentially what stops you. If you're in resonance to be stopped, if you reject it, is what stops you from accessing the upper spheres on the tree that represent these higher states of awareness and represent our upper chakras, being both the third eye and the crown chakra. So when you initiate into the abyss, you are going to have a confrontation with the beast in one way or another. So if you're going into the Sephirothic abyss, this is going to be Shugal, and Shugal is the more masculine manifestation of the beast of 666. Shugal is 1/2, so it's 333. And if you're initiating into the Qliphothic abyss, you're going to be confronted by Karanzan. Karanzan being the dark feminine polarity of this force, the more primordial aspects of it. also symbolized by the number 333, together they make up the beast of 666 that I've been referring to in this video. So you can look at the abyss as being like this threshold between the more, we could say, lower states of awareness, symbolized by the first 7 spheres on the Kabbalistic tree, and the higher states of awareness that are symbolized by the upper 3 spheres on the Kabbalistic tree. It's literally a separating point. It is a threshold. It is a liminal space that is neither here nor there. It is right in the middle, and it is a space of transition. But the transition can actually only happen when you integrate the beast, when you befriend the beast, when you accept the beast as being these different parts of yourself personified. And once again, this is where a lot of people actually go wrong. They think that the beast is something that needs to be restrained. They think that the beast is something that needs to be overcome. But the beast is something that needs to be accepted to actually cross the abyss and to start accessing the upper spheres on the tree. In the clip-off, this is going to be Satariel, Gagiel, and then Thamael. In the Sephiroth, this is going to be Bina, Hokmah, and then eventually Kether. So Babalon actually guides you into the abyss to meet the beast of 666. And in the book of Revelation, Babalon is actually riding the beast. And this is actually very symbolic of how Babalon is actually associated with showing us all of the different aspects of ourselves and aspects of human nature that are personified by this beast figure that we typically reject within ourselves. So these can be certain negative, even narcissistic kinds of personality traits and other personality traits as well that we were taught are not accepted by society, and therefore we not only can't let people see them, but we can't see them within ourselves. And this is also going to be more sensitive, wounded parts of us, and more sensitive, wounded parts of us that are commonly in association with our inner child that still experiences the burden of those early childhood memories, belief systems, and the emotions that are associated with that trauma that we went through in early childhood, or that we even inherited through our family line. So this is known as intergenerational or ancestral trauma. And the negative personality traits that I was talking about are actually going to be connected to protector parts of our psyche that feel they need to create these negative personality traits, even certain identities and belief systems, to keep us away from those more wounded, sensitive parts of ourselves that are a lot of the time associated with the inner child that we've actually imprisoned by existing in those negative identities that have those negative personality traits that, even though we are heavily influenced by, we are usually simultaneously rejecting because we were taught that it's not safe to have those negative personality traits. If we have these traits, we are a bad person. We're going to be exiled by the friend group, exiled by society. We're going to be judged and criticized. So even though we can have a lot of these negative personality traits, we usually hide them from the world, and we hide them from other people. We hide them from our friends. We hide them from our family. But more predominantly, what we're actually wanting to do by doing this is we want to hide them from ourselves. We don't actually want to think that we have these quote-unquote bad, negative personality traits. So all of this is what the beast of 666 being both Shugal or Karanzan, depending on how you're initiating through the Kabbalistic tree, either through the Sephiroth or the Klippoth. This is what the beast is actually a personification of. Not only the negative personality traits and the wounded inner child, but also the rejected qualities of human nature in association with the primal mind and even the reptilian brain. So as human beings, we have been taught that, we need to transcend our animal nature. We think to ourselves, well, maybe our ancestors operated in one way, but we are existing in organized society, and therefore we need to be civil, and therefore we need to be organized, and therefore, we need to act as if we are not animals. And there's nothing wrong with being civil. There's nothing wrong with organization as well. That's not what I'm saying. But we try to divorce ourselves from our animal primal nature. That is what I'm conveying to you with what I just said. So even though we try to divorce ourselves and separate ourselves from the fact that we are primal animals, there are still parts of us that exist in that primal animalistic energy, and those parts are typically buried within the primal aspects of the unconscious, or we can just say, I think to simplify it, the unconscious in general. And once again, these parts are associated with the reptilian brain, even though we think we have evolved past needing these parts, even though we're not conscious of how they're operating and how they're influencing our reality, they are influencing our belief systems, our thought patterns, our emotional states, and even things that materialize into our physical experience. So the beast of 666 is also going to be a representation of these rejected primal qualities of being that we actually need to accept and that we need to integrate to some degree in order to cross the abyss. And the reason why I say to some degree is the crossing of the abyss is actually the start of a major integration process that is a lifelong process. So it is in no way, shape, or form the end. And it is an ongoing evolutionary process. Even if you perceive yourself to be out of the abyss, there are going to be times, even years down the line, that you start seeing that abyssal resonance showing up in your life. You'll see it showing up in people, places, circumstances, energies, mental and emotional states for sure, signs, symbols, synchronicities, and even numbers that are associated with that abyssal energy. So you will at times, even when you cross the abyss, get brought back into that liminal space, that in-between space, to go through a deeper processing of those qualities that are inherent to the human nature and that are just a part of who we really are. Babalon leads you into this process, and that's why in the book of Revelation she is said to ride the beast. She shows up riding the beast, and this shows her influence over this concept, and it shows her influence over these different parts of ourselves and how she guides us into a deeper knowing and a deeper acceptance of those parts. Now, when you're going into the abyss, the beast is going to manifest in your life experience in different ways, starting with certain mental and emotional states that at times can be very challenging, even certain dreaming states and dreams that you might have, but also physical experiences. So I've seen the beast of 666 actually come through people in my life in ways that were really hard to actually connect with at the time. Because remember, the beast was not only a personification of certain negative personality traits that maybe were a little uncomfortable to take ownership over at the time that they were being projected onto me through certain people. But also the beast is a personification of these wounded inner child parts of me as well, that even though I was at this point consciously working with these parts, I had still suppressed them for a majority of my life, meaning when they do come up, there's a heavy resonance that is existing, and it's a very uncomfortable energy to kind of filter through the bodily experience. So it's important to know that the beast is very likely to come through people, to come through circumstances, but definitely people. Because, you know, people are representations of different parts of ourselves, all on their own. So what the beast will actually do is will influence the subconscious of different people, bring up their shadows in a way that maybe they weren't experiencing before, and then those shadows get projected onto you. But, you know, you're not a victim to this, and this isn't a bad thing. It is a triggered evolutionary experience that is taking place, and whatever is being projected onto you is resonating with something that is inside of you. So, you know, certain negative personality traits, negative limiting identity structures, and, you know, different parts of us that are underneath the surface of those identities and of those negative personality traits. That we were actually using the negative personality traits and the identities to actually avoid. So typically what I've experienced myself is I was getting a combination of both. When I went through both of my abyssal crossings, there was a lot of projection that was coming through people in my environment. So when I was in a relationship during the clipothic experience, that was there was a lot of projection and a lot of heavy energies, not only coming through that person, but other people around me as well, that were challenging me and even trying to harm me in different ways. When I was in the Sephirotic abyss, I wasn't in a relationship, but this was happening as well. It was happening through relationships and connections that I had with people. People would just get very triggered and become very sensitive, and then would project onto me, sometimes in ways that were very chaotic and very triggering to my inner child, that was actually experiencing a lot of fear because of what was actually projected onto me and the nature of these experiences in general. These were very close family matters that were taking place, to where, you know, people were actually attacking me. They were demonizing me. They were slandering me. And, you know, they were, you know, basically trying to harm me in different ways. So that's how the beast was actually coming through my reality, you know, during that time. The beast was showing up in people, and those people were challenging my sense of self-identity, and actually were meant to be these catalysts to help me refine the sense of self-identity. Because when you're crossing the abyss, whether it's the abyss of the Qliphoth or the Sephiroth, there's going to be this identity deconstruction that is taking place and is being initiated. That is the point of crossing the abyss, or the point of initiating into the abyss. The beast is going to show up to show you the parts of your identity, or just identity in general, that you are holding on to, that may be in resonance with different negative personality traits and limiting belief systems. So you can actually allow the trigger that is manifesting to help you detach from the identity, so you can let that identity dissolve. And because the identity was actually created by you to avoid, your wounded inner child, now simultaneously the wounded inner child is actually getting an opportunity to come to the surface in the form of certain mindsets and certain emotions that you're going to feel within your body, so you can be present with those emotions, which is also being present with the wounded inner child that you have locked away and that you have imprisoned up until this point. So this is the process that Babalon is leading you into by leading you to the beast of 666, who she is actually said to ride. And this symbolizes her influence over this entire evolutionary process that even when you cross the abyss successfully is going to keep unfolding. So once again, I want to be clear, even though we use the term crossing the abyss, what is actually happening is you are merging with that liminal space. You are merging with those Dothic energies. You are merging with the abyss to become the abyss, to actually get led to deeper and deeper layers or levels of what I like to call void consciousness. And void consciousness is this very present moment, very liminal, very intangible state of being, to where we're not over-identified with positive, we're not over-identified with negative. We allow ourselves to experience both, but we are right in the middle. We have experienced such a degree of collapse that there's no longer a need to hang on to positive or negative. We've experienced such a collapse that we reside right in the middle. Even when we're experiencing positive or we're experiencing negative, there's more of a neutral undertone to how we are experiencing that energy. So the abyssal crossing actually leads you to deeper and deeper states of void awareness or void consciousness. And what the void is it's the primordial chaos that is infinite possibility and infinite probability, but it hasn't necessarily taken the form of anything tangible yet. It's kind of like working with a clean slate. You know, imagine a chalkboard. Anything in our created reality or even the created cosmos in general is, you know, on the chalkboard, right? Drawn on the chalkboard, we can say. But the void is the chalkboard before anything is actually drawn on it. So you can imagine this is a very valuable state of awareness that you can enter, because you're getting the chance to, you know, work with the chalkboard before anything is written on that chalkboard. So being led to the beast of 666 and then, you know, going deeper into the abyss as you're confronting the beast of 666 eventually leads you to being able to access this clean slate, this clean chalkboard, so you can then write what your soul actually desires on that chalkboard, to bring that into a tangible experience for you. But in order to do that, you have to enter the void and start accessing these very unfathomable, very intangible, hard to grab onto and understand states of awareness that are ultimately fleshed out by that void state of being or by that void energy. This is what the abyss, the abyss and the beast of 666 are leading you into in different ways, depending on what aspect of the abyss you are working with. If you're working with the more, we can say, masculine polarity or the Sephirotic abyss, this is going to be, this is going to be the more unregulated aspects of your higher self, but they still have a tangibility to them. But when we're talking about the klepothic abyss, this is going to be these more unregulated aspects of your shadow self that are in direct connection with the void energy and actually exist outside of the structured cosmos. So even though the Sephiroth abyss, it does lead you into the void energy, it's still what we can say a more filtered version of that energy, more so in connection with the unregulated aspects of your higher self. But the klepothic abyss is going to be more unregulated aspects of what we can call the void energy, leading you to the shadow self, which is the void self. And of course it has its roots in the void, which is just this, womb space, this primordial chaos that has no definitive meaning to it until the created cosmos starts to come to be. From this, we can say, dark energy space, which is what gives birth to the light of the cosmos, light meaning structure and order, but is also outside of the boundary separating the created cosmos from what we would consider to be unmanifest. Babalon leads you into this deeper initiatory evolutionary process, and this is how Babalon is connected to the beast of 666. If you don't integrate the beast of 666, if you don't befriend the beast of 666, you will not actually be able to cross that liminal threshold to later down the line access deeper states of void awareness, or deeper states of what we call the void energy. This is what I wanted to share in this video. If you stayed all the way to the end, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate you, and I will catch you in the next video. Thank you.